Hey, this is Matt Hines with DevOps TV for DevOps.com at the Does 16 conference. I'm joined by Haydn from GitLab. Haydn, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome, Matt. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's been a great show so far. I think it's worthwhile up front. There, I went and did it.
Get it all the time.
GitHub, we're very familiar with. GitLab is an emerging presence here. What can you tell us about what it is that you guys do?
Sure. Yeah, we're the new kids on the block in the Git space. We do get mistaken for GitHub all the time. We're an open source code collaboration platform. We've been around since 2013. The project was started by our CTO. We incorporated in the States in 2014. Head office here in San Francisco. So fully open source. We sell an enterprise version. Version control, issue tracking, code review, and CI/CD all baked into a single application.
Very interesting stuff. So, who are your customers that are here this week? Have you got some folks on site who are talking about what they're doing?
Yeah, so there's two parts of the business. Obviously, there's the community edition side. That's our open source product. So there's a lot of people coming up. They see my shirt. Hey, GitLab, we love you guys. We use you. We don't know they're using it. That's great that we hear about that.
All good.
And then, we have a customer base who subscribe to the enterprise edition. There's a lot of them here. Some are presenting. Disney's presenting. There is Akamai was presenting. IBM's presented. They're all on the enterprise side, and then there's a bunch on the community side, like Capital One has got some GitLab. So there's quite a few here.
Yeah, those are some great names.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's. I think people are really starting to. One message that's become clear this week is people are really embracing open source. And it made sense that the tools that developers use, Git obviously being open source, but the platform on top of Git makes sense to be open source as well, so they can actually contribute to the platform that they use every day. So that was a big theme for me this week, was how it's being embraced.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about best practices this week, or it used to be emerging practices. I think we're driving towards best practices, and nearly every conversation that I've had today or this week has, elicited the fact that people are more willing to talk about tooling now, for whatever reason. Before it was, listen, we're talking about culture, we don't want to talk about tools. But we've gotten to a point where people really are talking about best practices for tooling, which is great. Are you seeing that with your business as well? Yeah,
it's no doubt now, it's a competitive advantage. With the advent of continuous integration and tying that to your development platform, and now continuous delivery and deployment, it's all becoming tightly integrated, and I think there's two ROIs, or returns on investment, for that. One is you attract the right talent. The modern developer grew up on GitHub, there's no doubt. So they're familiar with that sort of workflow and that tooling. So when they go to a company, they kind of expect to see that. So it becomes a recruitment and retention sort of strategy. And then it's a business advantage. You can increase the velocity of your development teams, getting stuff out the door faster, increasing your deployment velocity, things like that. So yeah, twofold.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, Haydn.
Sure.
Continuous people say DevOps means something different to everybody. I think continuous delivery suffers the same malady, right? What does continuous delivery mean to you or to GitLab?
Yeah, continuous delivery to me at least means that you're in a state where you can release at any given moment. You've got, it's sort of like, it's not so much an end result, but it's a process, and the outcome of that process is being able to deliver something at any given moment. If you had to ship in the next 5 minutes, then you could if you wanted to. You may not. You may decide to release every month, like we do. On the 22nd of every month, we put out a new major release. That's just our regular drumbeat cadence for releasing. But if we had to put out an emergency patch for a security hole tomorrow or in the next 5 minutes, we could do that. To me, that's what continuous delivery is.
It's funny. We've also talked about snowflakes here a lot, right? Everybody's a snowflake. People aren't such a snowflake. You'll hear other people say, right? So, again, definitions aside, you talk about bringing to market an integrated platform, a single platform, and it's got various components to it. I would imagine that different organizations have a different idea about what they need from a platform. How is it that GitLab has arrived at what needs to be in, again, the platform it's providing? How is that changing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. our CEO has really defined our scope of what we will include in the platform and what we won't go after. The core developer tools have kind of always been, issue tracking, version control, code review, and now we're seeing continuous integration, also come as part of that dev stack, and even deployment to some degree. But things like, say, security scanning, scanning for vulnerabilities, things like that's probably something that we wouldn't say is part of our scope. We're always trying to, be really clear on what we consider to be part of our platform and what we'll, look to, integrate with or, open up to others, things like that.
And the beauty of being open source is you're 100% engaged with the community and looking at how they're advancing their use of the tooling.
Yeah.
And I'm sure driven in large part by what you see there.
Yeah, in fact, our CI tool, GitLabs CI, the runner for GitLabs CI was contributed by someone in the community. So it was something that developers wanted inside GitLab, so they just went ahead and did it. It's a prime example of that.
It's funny, I'll ask you one last question before we let you go. One of the presentations here yesterday talked about the top 10 ways to fail at DevOps. And one of those was too much open source, right? Because of the notion of reliability, support,
right,
et cetera. Listen, we've been hearing this since the genesis of the open source movement. Yet at the same time, this is being exacerbated by DevOps and the cloud. There's all kinds of different, confluences happening that continue to bring this subject to light. As a provider that is driven by an open source community, how do you, encourage people to use as much of the open source tooling as possible while also, balancing that? And I know you do. You also have, of course, the enterprise version, so I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah, so it's always tricky. A lot of companies are embedding open source components into the products that they're releasing. So
yes,
there's that part, but then they're also, using open source tools as part of that development platform. I think what we've seen is they're straddling the fence between how much to expose outside and how much to keep on premise. We've always kind of been focused on premise. That's always been that's how GitLab started. Our CTO and founder wanted a collaboration platform that he could put on his own servers for his consulting clients. That's how he started. And but he was importing things from open source and contributing back to open source. Having that delineation between the two, but having an easy way to do it is the challenge.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Probably always will be.
It will, yeah, absolutely. Still evolving.
Haydn, thanks for joining us. GitLab, clearly a very interesting company to watch in this space. Again, Matt Hines with DevOps TV for DevOps.com, @Does16. Thanks for joining us.